Hi, I'm Rebecca Krieger. Welcome to my brand new pottery studio. Impression I wanted to create when you first walk in is a gallery space that creates the idea that you walked into a room in a castle hidden in the middle of the woods. Eventually I plan to get a lot more shelving and make more work that's suitable to go in the space. I intend to have a round table set up with a place setting. I believe that the worst thing you could do is buy a beautiful piece of pottery and put it on the shelf. The goal is to romanticize the little daily moments in life. So a lot of the work in this area has been experimental along my journey to create my voice in the work. After battling with the VC mat and losing a ton of pieces and a lot of food shelves, I ended up deciding to stop fighting that and just create my own version of mixing pinks with whites with black. And I love the way the surfaces blend together, and it almost looks like the pink is bleeding through the piece. Over here you can see the progression of the work when I went through the journey workshop with Stephen Hill to find my voice in my work. As I was working through making the pieces with the pinks and the blacks, and through a lot of mentoring with Stephen Hill, I eventually settled onto pieces like this where it felt more like the colors were coming out of the work rather than applied directly on. In this area, this is intended to be a future sculpting and hand building area. Truth be told, I haven't used the slab roller that much because I've been so focused on making pots on the wheel. So this slab roller is actually, I think, one of the largest models that can be found. I got it used from a potter who was downsizing his space. And essentially, a piece of clay goes under this canvas mat, and then the roller smushes it into a flat surface. What's hiding underneath the tapestry is my mess of grinding and polishing and smoothing. Eventually I want to put up my tapestry. My daughter bought this for me for my birthday several years ago, and I think it serves as a great studio mascot. This is the sculpting stand that I put together after attending a sculpting workshop with Mary Artoon. And this is the most perfect thing for standing, watching the view outside, and working on your piece. I can show you how it's put together in another future video. This is my painting horse. Before I learned how to make pottery, I was using a lot of acrylic paints. I've kind of abandoned painting for a little while, but I'm hoping to get back into it, so it remains here. I wanted to create a space that was functional so I could mix up my own glazes. And as you can see in here, I have all of my buckets of glaze mixing materials, my scale, my sieve, all of the other necessary components, including the most important component, the wine fridge. Up here in the cabinets, I'll be putting in all of my colorants and mason stains. Currently, they're just storing a bunch of extra things that I haven't yet dealt with. Here, this is where I currently have like a lot of my sculpting tools. I've been working on adding sculpted elements into my pieces. And this is my current collection of paint brushes. They're quite abused. And of course, this wall holds the most important components to glaze making. Silica, the kaolin, the fritz, and so on. In here I have a few of my favorite ceramics books. This one isn't necessarily a ceramics book. I highly recommend reading it. It's Still Like an Artist, and it's not about copying people's work, but it's more about how to be inspired and apply it to your own vision. Highly recommend this book. Leonardo da Vinci, obviously one of the greats. As we move this way, I have two shelves which are different phases of the pottery making process. So this shelf is all bone dry pieces that I already made and trimmed, and they haven't yet been bisque fired. And then on this side, these are the pieces that are waiting for their glaze. They've already been fired once, and they're just waiting for my inspiration or motivation to spray the glazes on. Which puts them right here on my spray booth. This is essentially the dream spray booth. I think it's like the most functional. It's great because you can turn the fan on and it takes all of the nasty chemicals out of there as you're spraying your glazes on. So this area is to eventually hold all of my kiln shelves. Currently I have the kiln furniture here, the cones, which are essential to measuring the temperature in the kiln. And then also I have all the spray booth accessories over here too, so I'll be able to functionally spray glazes here, put it here, wipe the bottoms, and load them right into the kiln. Very important part of this video is the homage to Paul Sullivan. This is my handy dandy kiln. This is my Step 1027. It's like the perfect medium-sized electric kiln. It can be run on most households, as long as you of course have a professional have it set up. The glazes, it can fire up to a cone 10, but I currently fire mid-range, which would be a cone 6 with like a 7-minute hold at the end to make sure that the glaze is melted. Every time I start a glaze firing, I put incense in my incense burner and hope that the kiln gods are kind to me. They don't like me quite yet, but I'm hoping that they start to realize I'm a very faithful servant. So this is my very favorite place in the pottery, and this is where I make most of my work. This wheel is actually a Brent CXC. Got this at the art museum where I learned my first beginning throwing classes. And when they stopped doing pottery lessons because the clay was making footprints through the entire art museum, they decided to sell out all of their equipment, and I scored this one for $225, which is unheard of now. I have a lot of pottery tools, but I put my favorite ones right here next to the wheel. If you'd like to see a video of me explaining which tools I love and which ones are must-haves, let me know. This area is my inspiration / artist block corner. And I wanted to create sort of like a French era inspiration corner because that's clearly the type of work that inspires what I want. All of these chairs and deals have been thrifted on Facebook Marketplace for an amazing steal. Some of them aren't actual antiques, but I like the look of them. My very favorite painting, my very favorite artist in the world, which is Hieronymus Bosch, Garden of Earthly Delights. I made sure that I moved my pottery wheel facing the window so I could have a view of the backyard. Ignore the construction scrap because we just were literally sweeping up sawdust like last week. But back there you can see where the woods are, where my husband has his sweat lodge, and there are bricks out there for a future kiln build, which I have been procrastinating probably 8 years now. Area is my future teaching area. I had my electrician put cords that drop down because the plan is to eventually get enough pottery wheels so I can teach classes. And right here is my very first wheel that I ever had. At the time, I couldn't afford a pottery wheel, and so my brain was thinking, you don't want to buy a cheap one that's going to fall apart. And so my thinking was to get something that was non-motorized so it wouldn't break down. This is my wedging table, and it's currently where I measure out all the clay balls and get things prepared. It's also going to be served as a workstation. I do plan to put high chairs here so I can actually work on sculpting pieces in this area. This is a thrifted clay pail because it's very important to measure your balls of clay so you can get consistent pieces. So over here we have Bertha. This is my brand new Peter Pugger pug mill. It's a VPM 9 stainless steel from Peter Pugger. And what this thing does is you put all of your recycled clay scraps, aka your filled pots, in there, and you can turn it on, it'll mix up the clay, and then the vacuum takes the air out, and then out of this end comes fresh brand new clay that you can make new with. This is the little corner I set aside for my husband, because when he heard that I was building an outbuilding, he started telling me all of the tools that he wanted to put in here, and I was like, no fucking way, no fucking way. This is his little corner, and in here it's basically like a single car garage, and it just keeps like the lawnmowers and all the extra junk in there, and that is all I let him have. I chose paint color. This is called Pink, Pinque. I believe it's a bear paint color. I thought it looked like the most perfect pompadour pink, which also feeds into my whole French-inspired pieces. The beams designed and put together by my contractor, North Carpentry. He decided to put together all of the wood pieces, made it look like it was a little bit more of a high-end structure on the inside. Thank you so much for coming out to see my brand new pottery studio. I know that it is a big dream to have a studio space like this, and truth be told, I've been thinking about having a place like this for a long time. I do know that I'm very blessed, and I am super grateful that I was able to put it together like this. Obviously, there are a lot more future plans to tweak little things here and there in the studio to get a budget for more pottery wheels so I can start teaching classes, but I do feel like everything is pretty much in its place to be a functional studio at this point. Thank you for sticking with me. I understand there are a lot of great content creators on YouTube, so you found your way somehow to this Gen X granny. So things are going to be awkward for a little bit, but I really do appreciate you coming around. This is my very first YouTube video, and I know that it isn't where it should be. Eventually, you'll get some really great content explaining how I make different pieces as well as discussing work of other potters that I really admire. Now go make something.